Okay. Let's see. Hey, good evening. Good evening. Welcome, everybody. We are on our series 10 of Getting to the Root of It. And tonight we're going to be talking the second day of the microbiome and hormones. Who has hormones? What kind of hormones do you have? All right. Are your hormones raging? Because that's what I said today in the Facebook post is, are your hormones raging today? You better be on tonight. So thank you for joining us this evening in this series. It's a monthly series, 2 times a month. And at the end of this, I'll tell you what's going on for the rest of this year in regards to what's going on in October, November, December, and hopefully you can join us then. But I want to start out by saying that we're going to, I've got Dr. Georgia Balsley, a naturopath from Michigan, who is on board, and she is the expert and the guru, and she's the end-all be-all between autoimmune diseases and the microbiome. So with that, I want to start out also with saying that we are really humbled to be partnered with the first holistic mental wellness company that actually focuses on the microbiome, which is the gut-brain axis. And for many of you who don't know, or if you do know, the gut is the second brain. And we have been really providing a lot of information, providing value, and directing people to locations where they can get information to really start getting educated about the importance of the microbiome and your overall health. The Microbiome Project started in 2016, formulated in 2016, and really started going in 2006, and then really started going in 2007. And over the last 4 to 5 years, the studies have been coming out, the clinical trial reports have been coming out, and basically, in my opinion, is everything really starts in the gut. And every autoimmune disease, anything to do with the gut, anything to do with the brain, they are actually doing research and studies on that correlation between the gut and the brain. And that connection is the vagus nerve, which is a big nerve that connects the gut and the brain. And it's a pretty significant part of this entire system. And I want to share, I was talking to a gentleman on Wednesday, and his son suffers from epilepsy. And he told me his son has this implant into his chest that sends a signal to the vagus nerve that actually triggers the hormones and the neurotransmitters. So he has less seizures in regards to his epilepsy, which I found very, very fascinating. So with that, lots of stuff coming down the pike, but I want to really introduce Dr. Georgia Balsley, who is a naturopath, as I said, from Michigan. I'm really humbled to be partnered with her in this journey, holistic journey, and really value her input into what we're doing here. And she is a daughter, a wife, a mother of 9 children. Oh my God, I'm one of 5, and my husband's one of 9, so I get that. But Dr. Georgia, would you please share with us? Oh, she's also military. Thank you for your service, and please share with us some of your background to our viewers before we dive into the questions. Thanks.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. It's such a pleasure to do these series, and it's a joy to educate. I think knowledge is power, and it's important that we have resources to be able to make better choices. My background is holistic medicine. I got involved in naturopathic medicine actually through my children. I have a medical background from the military, was a corpsman in the military. I worked cardiac cancer, finished out in the emergency room, and saw some amazing things there, and thought that I would move over into the allopathic realm. maybe nuclear medicine, forensic medicine was on the rise, was very interested in that. And then I decided to have a family, and while I was tinkering around in holistic herbal therapies, I was actually thwarted all the way in. So I've been in naturopathic medicine well over 30 years. I see patients from all over the country. My furthest patient flew in from Tokyo, Japan, which is pretty exciting because I don't advertise. That's all word of mouth. So the things we say do get around, right? And so I'm excited to be partnered with the first mental wellness company that's doing phenomenal things for individuals. And really, it's not a Band-Aid. We're dealing with that gut-brain axis and creating significant change in the microbiome. And because of that, we're seeing overall change in health. And that's pretty doggone exciting.
So you're really saying, if I hear you correctly, we're getting to the root of it.
We are, which is important.
Yowza.
That's the birthing of functional medicine, trying to get to the root of it, right?
Absolutely, and that's what this is all about. So super, that's great. And so thank you for that introduction. And again, thank you for your service. It's truly humbling to honor and respect the men and women of the military. Give you guys a lot of credit, and it's amazing what you guys, men and women do to sacrifice for our country. So with that, we did have 2 weeks ago our first talk about hormones, and that there are actually over 50 kinds of hormones that are secreted by our body through multiple glands. We did go over some of them 2 weeks ago. We'll focus on some other ones today. But the first one and we actually have 13 glands that secrete anywhere from 1 to multiple hormones per gland, which I found very interesting when I was doing my research before we started this. And but today we're going to start with the men and the women's hormones. All right, we'll get that out of the way. All right. And yes. So I'm going to refer to some of my notes here because it's just overwhelming how much information there is out there. But, men and women actually share testosterone and estrogen. Okay. And we know that the male testosterone is obviously created in the family jewels. And we have the female hormones which are created in the ovaries, but on top of the estrogen, there's progesterone, right? Progesterone, yes, progesterone. But I also learned that though the testosterone and progesterone is also created in the adrenal glands. There's a small percentage of that, which I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So we'll get to the adrenals later, but let's talk a little bit about the importance of the male hormones and the female hormones and how that relates to the microbiome and the gut-brain axis, because as we know, 80% of the neurotransmitters and hormones are created in our gut. So share with us and share how you also what you're finding in your practice, because you're the naturopath in your practice, but you partnered with a functional medicine, and what you do, what she does, and what you can't do, she does, and what she can't do, you do. So it's the perfect synergistic joint partnership.
Yes. So together we can do great things, right? And so
Absolutely.
Let's do a little bit of a science background so that we understand what we're talking about. So there's a couple hormones that we hear in the field, and the first one we'll start with the male. And I've taken some notes, so you'll see me look down, but it's a lot of information, and we want to cover it in a short amount of time. But one of the hormones is called androgen, and androgens are a class of steroidal hormones, and they're found primarily in the male testes, and in the female, we carry those as well. Androgens are found in the ovaries and the adrenal glands. And the androgens control male sex traits and the development, but in females, androgens influence sexual behavior and sexual drive. So as we talk about hormones, even though we contain all the hormones, it's in different percentages, and how it affects each one of our classes or our makeup is greatly varied. So moving right along to testosterone, we hear about that a lot too, especially in the weightlifting industry. Testosterone is a it's primarily a male sex hormone, and it's an anabolic steroid. So now we've got a couple different types of hormones that are steroids, right? Testosterone's key function is the development of male reproductive organs such as your testes, prostate, as well as promoting sexual characteristics such as muscle and bone mass and body hair growth. So testosterone creates the hair in the men's chest and the hairier arms and legs, and yes. And we'll talk a little bit about that, Jeff. Yeah, generally women make about 1/10 to 1/20th the amount of testosterone compared to a man, and that's huge. But we need testosterone as women. If testosterone becomes out of balance in a woman, some of the things that can happen is her ovaries could become more cysty. So something like polycystic ovarian syndrome. She could experience a lower voice. She could experience body hair as well, and facial growth, acne, and even baldness, male pattern baldness. So as I was putting this together, I remember being in psychology class, and we were talking about when a baby's born, we've got two hemispheres of the brain, right? And right down the center. So when we see it, that little center, that's cerebral callosum. Right. And so when testosterone starts, when the baby's born, those hormones really start kicking in. And of course, they peak as we age, but the testosterone actually will start severing those neural connections. And so it's thought that's why women keep saying that they're all over in their brain. They can kind of multitask, and men can't. They're kind of linear thinkers. And so there's a thought that testosterone is responsible for that. Has a little fun testosterone fact. So moving on to estrogen. Estrogen, there are three most commonly hormones in the estrogen family. The first one is estrone, which is also known as E1. This is a weak form of estrogen, and it's the only type found in women after menopause. Keep that in mind, ladies. Small amounts of estrone are present in most tissues and in the body, primarily in the fat and the muscle. It is important as we age that we really do look at keeping our weight under control, because if estrogen is stored in fat tissue, us women have a tendency to get a lot of that belly fat, which puts that higher amounts of estrogen around reproductive organs such as our ovaries and our uterus, right?
Right.
So estradiol would be number 2 in the estrogen category. This is also known as E2. So sometimes when women are tested for hormone-dominant cancers, they look if it's positive or negative. This is the strongest type of estrogen. Estradiol is a steroid produced by the ovaries. So now we've got 3 different types of steroids, right? This type of estrogen is thought to be a contributor to gynecological problems such as fibroids, endometriosis, and cancer, because it is the strongest type of estrogen. And then we have estriol. I call it the older sister, middle sister, and the youngest sister. And estradiol is the weakest of all the estrogens, and it's a waste product actually made after the body uses estradiol. It's an interesting fact that during pregnancy, estradiol is the only time which it's in significant amounts is during pregnancy. So that's pretty interesting. Estrogen is responsible for female features such as our physical features and reproduction. It gives us our voluptuous curvy figure, breast growth, starting of our menstrual cycles. It helps control cholesterol. Ladies, you probably didn't know that.
Oh, wow.
Bone health. It protects cognitive function of the brain as well as our heart, our skin, and other tissues of the body. So it really does. It's like testosterone is to a man in protection of cognitive function. Estrogen is that way for a woman. Predominant forms of estrogen in men is actually estradiol. So men do have estrogen. And it's needed because it plays an essential role for modulating libido, erectile function, and spermatogenesis, which means the development and maturation of sperm, which is important if we're thinking about having children. And then we have what's called progesterone. And progesterone is a progestational steroidal hormone. And when we call progestation, it's the hormone that increases when we get pregnant at the onset of conception. That progesterone rises. Progestin is trying to hold that baby in until it's time for that baby to come out. Progesterone is produced by both men and women. In women, progesterone functions to mainly regulate the condition of the inner lining of the endometrium. So in our cycle, estrogen comes up, progesterone comes in, it lowers, we have our cycle, and we go through that whole ebbs and tides of hormonal changes. In women, of course, it's the functions regulates the endometrium or the lining of the uterus. So as we age in menopause, what ends up happening when we start going into menopause, that lining gets thinner and thinner and thinner. And the doctors want to see that because a thicker lining can indicate some health complications, and that needs to be ruled out and addressed. But progesterone, the changes of it, it'll start fluxing as we get older and start moving into menopause. And it's believed that really progesterone is the hormone that is the major cause of symptoms experienced around menopause, those hot flashes, those mood swings, those type of things. But progesterone's also made in our counterparts, the male, and it's produced by the adrenal glands and the testes. Progesterone is needed to produce testosterone, so they have to have it or you don't get enough testosterone. Low progesterone can affect libido, hair loss, there you go, Jeff, hair loss, depression, and fatigue. And so I'm going to go talk about, so we were talking about some of the little glands too. So I want to talk a little bit about this. You okay with that, Jeff? And then we'll go into how that microbiome kind of affects all of it.
Yep.
So we have these wonderful little glands that sit atop our kidneys called the adrenals. And we see in our clinic, our office, we see so many patients in various stages of adrenal fatigue or that fright and flight. And it is becoming astronomical of how many individuals really suffer with adrenal dysfunction. And so, you know, fright or flight or adrenal imbalance or adrenal fatigue are the most common that we hear and we read about. The microbiome disparity, that means the shift or the space, how much of good or bad bacteria and fungal species create inflammation, and they in turn stimulate your adrenal glands. So our gut plays a huge role in how our adrenals function. So if we have an overgrowth, or we talked about leaky gut, which most people have, that inflammatory process stimulates cortisol values and really starts stimulating those adrenals, which end up sending out different hormone chemicals to try to create and fix what's happening in the inflammatory process. It does. Our body, what we do to it and how it tries to counterbalance and fix it is just phenomenal if we really look at all the caveats. So they produce cortisol and they also produce other inflammatory hormones trying to fix what's going on. And this in turn taxes the adrenal glands and causes various stages of adrenal imbalance or fatigue. Scientific research, and there's more and more. When we talk about the Microbiome Project, scientists are actually, and doctors are being blown away by what they're seeing when it comes to the microbiome and the diversity of what the microbiome really does for the overall health of our body. It's just not a gut thing. It's an overall body thing. Right. And so by having a well-seated, what I mean is a diversity of microbiome, I call them gut buddies or flora that live in there. They see that it has definitely a direct effect of the adrenals and the HPA axis. And the HPA axis means the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and adrenals. So they all interconnect together and they see how it can create a huge shift. And then when we talk about the adrenals, we can't talk about the adrenals without talking about the thyroid because they're really bosom buddies. And in my practice, I practice Chinese medicine, and the Chinese have been very brilliant in looking at health overall and studying the body well over 6,000 years. And they put the thyroid and adrenal together as bosom buddies. So if you have an issue with one, you can guarantee you have an issue with another, and you have to address both. And so there is the thyroid is this butterfly-shaped gland that sits in our throat right here. Oftentimes you'll go for your physical and the doctor's squeezing right there, checking and looking for nodules. But there's a direct evidence to show that gut health is a direct effect on thyroid health. And in fact, there was a PhD, his name is Jack Gilbert. He was at the American Association of Endocrine Surgeons, and he spoke to them about the role of the microbiome in thyroid cancer. And he stated that the reciprocal nature of the health of the microbiome in the human gut fosters interaction with many physiological and metabolic balances. What he means by that is that it affects everything, is really what he's saying. And the interaction of those can affect not only the thyroid, but it can affect the brain, and it can affect the heart, and it can affect the liver. And research is now showing how it can affect actually our breasts and our reproductive health. And he said that the loss of health by the loss of microbes may explain why we have such an increased susceptibility to thyroid disorders, which there's enough research that links the gut and the gut health to how your thyroid functions, diabetes, cancer, sepsis, and even depression. And then our wonderful little next gland is our pineal gland. And our pineal gland was once known as the third eye. Any of you chakra people out there? But it is a small gland in the brain. And this little gland is not fully understood because there's just so many complications with our whole human anatomy and the ins and outs. We haven't really gotten it all down pat. But one thing they do know is that the pineal gland regulates your hormones, including melatonin. That's right. You heard me right. Melatonin is a hormone.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Most people don't think it is. They think it's a nutritional supplement on a shelf, but they're actually taking a hormone. And melatonin regulates our sleep cycle, also known as our circadian rhythm. So we do, in all nocturnal animals, they follow us circadian rhythm where we're awake, we need to sleep, and we need so many hours of being awake, so much time of being asleep. And taking us out of those kind of patterns can affect our overall health. But did you know that melatonin's regulation needs to have a healthy gut? Because what is the precursor to melatonin? We have neurotransmitters in those guts.
Neurotransmitters in the gut.
And that neurotransmitter is serotonin. And what's really interesting is 95% of serotonin, known as 5-HT, is made in the gut. So if our gut imbalance is not right, our melatonin balance can't be right either. And so many of us like to do the dreaded, I'm going to check my phone one last time before I go to bed. Or they sit in bed and they watch television. And that's the worst thing they can do because melatonin starts peaking. It starts raising in the late afternoon. And then it peaks at 3 a.m. and then it starts falling so that we can wake up and go through our whole circadian rhythm. Well, if it needs dark, our brain, the pineal gland needs the dark, which unfortunately we don't have multi-lenses on our eye, and our eyelids are too thin to really stop any light in our bedroom. That's why I would highly encourage you, if you have a television in your bedroom, get rid of it. It's not the place. Bedrooms are for sleeping, not for watching television. And put your phone away at least 30 minutes before you go to bed. Don't look at it. Allow that pineal gland to start regulating so that you can get into a better sleep, because light does affect it. That's why when we get up in the morning, the first thing we should do is really open our brain and look outside and allow that pineal gland to see that light with that regulation. Helps that the diversity with the melatonin. And so with all that said, the gut is the regulator of everything. We can see it's critical for the overall function of the body, and it has a predominant role in the beginning of roughly 95% of all issues in the body. So I liken our body to a car. If we don't take care of how the energy systems and whatever we need from the gas tank to get to the engine, it's not going to go anywhere. And the same way with our body.
Amazing.
That's a lot.
Amazing. And you just transition from, the male to the adrenals, to the thyroid, to the pineal. And, as I'm learning more and more about this, it's amazing what that man upstairs has put together. And there's more to learn from this. It's just truly amazing. So thank you for that those multitude of nuggets. And I'm sure many of us who are on tonight and who will watch the replay are guilty of watching TV in bed and doing the phone, until, okay, now it's time to go to bed and shut the phone off. I definitely am one of those people. So that's something that, and I've heard this, and it's a habit. We need to change that habit, make that tweak, and respect. As I say, you need to treat your body like the temple it is. So, because it is a temple, and you want to respect that temple and the value that you have in that. So thank you so much for that, Dr. Georgia. And we have a special guest tonight who is coming on. She's going to come on board here. And but Patricia Didelot, she is lives in Milton, Wisconsin. She is a wellness partner. She's a daughter. She's a mom. She's got two beautiful young daughters. That I think one is still in high school and one just went to college her first year, and she is a health and wellness mentor for women going through menopause. Oh, what are we talking about? Hormones. So
imagine that.
Welcome, Patricia.
Hey, Jeff. Hey, Georgia.
Tonight.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, share with us what you're doing. Number one, I would like to share a little bit about who you are, and then what you're doing with helping other women who are going through menopause, and then what this product line has done, for you. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Well, again, thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Dr. Georgia, for that amazing science class about hormones. I was trying to take notes, but I think I'm just going to watch the replay and, take better notes. Thank you so much for that. I think that's super valuable because we don't have a lot of information about this. Really, the education part is, invaluable. So, yes, well, like you said, Jeff, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a caregiver to my mom as well. She's 90 years old, and I, care for her most of the time. I have some sisters that help me out with that. And I'm a partner with you guys in this amazing mental wellness company. So it's super exciting to see everything that we're doing and how we're helping people to, improve their health. And, with this gut health new science that, we have been kind of it's been placed in front of us. So it's truly amazing. And what Dr. Georgia was talking about when she was mentioning menopause and hormones and everything, that kind of inspired me to help, try to put the word out there for other women, because there's so much, need for that. Women are not prepared for menopause. They have no idea what to do. There's all this information. The doctors sometimes, they don't have the time really, in an appointment to help you. And to give you all the information you need. And people are not researching. They're not, until they have it, right? Until they're there, it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Women and men, the husbands, the partners, the kids, nobody knows what to do. So since I'm in my 50s and I had gone through some of the stuff and everything, and I'm going through some of the stuff, I thought this is the perfect platform to, try to reach as many people as I can, right? And try to help in a small way to let people know what the alternatives are. Because I was the kind of person that did not want to go into hormone replacement therapy. I kind of knew that from the beginning. When I was younger in my 20s, I was diagnosed with endometriosis. So, what you were saying, Dr. Georgia, was very familiar, all the issues, and I lost an ovary actually because I had no idea, I had a cyst and a rupture, and the doctor, they couldn't save it. So I have one ovary, and luckily it was enough to have, two beautiful daughters, like Jeff said. Thank you, Jeff. But, that brought on a whole bunch of things. I was in treatments and trying to figure out natural things. And this is years and decades ago, right? 30 years ago. And it wasn't even registering for me, what was happening to my own body. Because I was in my 20s, I was early 20s. I, wasn't interested in having a family yet or anything like that. So, but again, I did not want to go into the hormone replacement therapy. And luckily, we are partnered with this company that offers natural solutions, right? And not everybody knows that there are natural solutions. People are looking, they're taking all of these over-the-counter things. You were talking about sleep, that's a huge problem during menopause. And people are, going for the melatonin and the over-the-counter things, and they don't even know what they're taking, really. So it's really scary because, some of these things are not like the best for us, really. Like if you don't like do your homework and look at the labels and see what's in them. So I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity that I have had to regulate my hormones with this gut-brain axis nutrition system. The first gut-brain axis nutrition system ever that we are so lucky to have access to, and it's available for anybody that wants to, try it, give it a try, right? And what this has done, I firmly believe, when you were talking about gut health, Dr. Georgia, I firmly believe that was my missing link. Okay, but because last year, as millions of women that are going through menopause probably experience, I was stuck with my weight. That was my biggest issue. And as we know, weight gain leads to other things, especially that weight that sits in your gut, right? Talking about gut, that sits in your belly. It can lead to other things like obesity and diabetes and heart disease and all that. And my husband had a heart attack in 2017, which was really scary and totally unexpected, even though he has, his family has heart disease and he has heart disease in his family, but we never thought it would happen to him. He was 53 years old. So that was kind of like, put me in alert about my own health, right? And I was like, I was gaining weight and I was stuck and I was doing all the things. That was the thing. And a lot of people are in that same boat. They're doing all the things. They're taking care of their diet, their nutrition, their exercising. I was doing intense stuff. I was doing HIIT, high intensity interval training, which is like one of the, best things you can do for you if you're into that, intense workout. So that is, pretty intense, right? And I was doing weight training because I know weight training is good for women as well, osteoporosis, bone strength and all that. And muscles, growing muscles is good for us. So I was doing all that and the scale was moving up. So I was like, what the heck, So anyway, long story short, I joined this, mental wellness company and I started taking the supplements, and that's when it didn't happen immediately. It's not like a miracle cure. You still have to keep doing the work. I know Jeff has been working his butt off with, taking care of his type 2 diabetes, and, you look amazing, Jeff. I saw you in person earlier in the month, and it was like truly, truly amazing. And so, you have to do your part, right? I mean, it's not something like a magic pill or anything like that. So, I kept working out, I kept taking care of myself, and I learned so much more. I feel like I've been in school, like going to science or, biology class or something like that, because I've learned so much about gut health and how that affects everything, really. Like you said, Dr. Georgia, like, to me, again, that was my missing link. When my gut started to work better, that's when the weight started coming off. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I was obsessed with weighing myself. That's the other thing. And that stresses you out. It's kind of like a cycle, right? Like the cortisol levels are super high, the estrogen is super low, and your body's just like, and I was obsessed with my weight because I was like, what am I doing that I'm gaining weight? So, that was adding to everything else. And now I understand how stress affects me and how stress resilience can improve my health as well. So that's another thing that comes with balancing your gut-brain axis, right? Like stress resilience. It's not that stress is not there in your life anymore, because life is life, right? I mean, we have stress all the time about everything, about family, about finances, about, growing our businesses, about like everything. So stress is going to be there, but the thing is how we manage that, right? So this has also helped me to be more resilient. And I think that has been a huge help. Like I find myself not freaking out and overreacting about things that I would have overreacted if I wasn't, doing this. So that's a little bit of my story. And again, we have a platform, right? Like we have a huge platform here with social media, with Facebook, and I created a page and I said, I'm going to try to help women that are, looking for alternative solutions and don't want to go to the hormone replacement therapies and other things that, like when you go to the doctor, they just give you a prescription. Oh, take this for sleep. Oh, take this for anxiety and for depression and all that. I didn't really want to do that. So I'm so happy that I have found this, and I feel better than I did, I don't know, 10 years ago. Even though I've always, I have to disclose to you that I've always, I come from a place of health, and I know a lot of healthy people are going through the same thing and they're stuck, right? Again, I don't have a serious health condition. I don't have like anything, you know, major, other than little things that, you know, were okay, but I knew that, you know, I could feel better probably. And now I know that, you know, I can feel a lot better. But a lot of people are just like, you know, why am I stuck? Like, you know, I can't do anything to, you know, to feel better, to lose the weight, to sleep better, to have more energy, and all those things that happen during menopause. So, yeah, I mean, I just want to share this information with people that, you know, are looking for, you know, other options. So that's,
Awesome.
that's basically, yeah.
Awesome. That's great, Patricia. Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, I'm blown away by the different stories and the testimonials that we have. And for those who are watching and those who are going to watch the replay, you know, reach out to the individual who invited you to this tonight and any future series that we have, because we're really, we are making a massive change here in science and in health and wellness. And the microbiome is the science that is disrupting the health and wellness industry. And we're disrupting it. We are really disrupting it. And we're in the forefront of something really, really magnificent here. And we've only just begun. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen. I'm anxious to see what's going to happen in you know, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 10 years, whatever. But as we move forward and the science evolves and we get more and more research on it, because, you know, it's I was talking to a woman the other day who is she kind of heads up the cystic fibrosis foundation out in West Palm, or no, in on the east coast of Florida. I forgot. Oh, Boca Raton. And I'm like, cystic fibrosis. So I did a search on Google, cystic fibrosis in the microbiome. And there's a lot of studies out there on that. I'm like, you know, it's like, no matter what it is, our body is a microbiome, skin microbiome and gut microbiome, heart microbiome, you know, so forth and so on. So it's very, very exciting. We're on, what is it? We're in a trend here, and you know, it's very, very exciting. So with that, I want to thank Dr. Georgia. I want to thank Patricia for coming on board tonight. I want to thank those of you who are actually Jerry and David who are on tonight, and those who said that they couldn't make it and they want to get to the recording. Thank you for, you know, watching this. I'll get this out, but you know, we just finished the hormone series in October, or excuse me, in September. October is going to be on cancer and the microbiome. November is going to be on the baby microbiome. And then we're going to take a break in December, give everybody, you know, relaxation between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And then we'll resume this back in January. And sometime in November, I'll let you know what's going on in January. But again, reach out to the individual who invited you to this series to get more information. And I thank you very much for everybody who joined us tonight, and blessings to all. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Knight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.